guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and as promised I'm here to do a review of A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas today, and I'm very excited to talk about this book. So first off, I want to say obviously A Court of Mist and Fury is the second book in the series. So I will be talking about things that happened in A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm going to try and keep A Court of Mist and Fury as spoiler free as possible. I won't be talking about any explicit things that happen in it, just about some of the themes in the book, but I will be talking about some things that happen particularly near the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses. So if you haven't read the first book, please don't watch this one unless you do want to get spoiled. Yeah, so I just want to put that disclaimer out there before anyone watches it and then gives out to me for spoiling the first book. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like where to start, because there's just so many things about this book that I loved, as I gushed about in my weekly wrap up recently, and this book just completely captured my heart. I just thought it was great. It's quite a lengthy book. It is about 600 pages, but I really feel like we got a lot in those 600 pages, and I feel like Sarah J Maas in her characters explored a really wide array of topics. Not only did she do a lot of world building and a lot of build up to what is coming in the next few books, which is obviously probably going to be like a very large war again, and a lot of action and adventure and possibly a lot of heartbreak for the readers. I'm anticipating that right now, but we got to just like as I said, a lot of world building. We got to see several different places that we didn't get to see in the first book, and we also got to find out about different types of fairies, different families in the courts, and different types of powers and stuff, which was really, really interesting, which I loved. So the first thing I want to talk about this book is obviously with Feyre, or Feyre Cursebreaker as she's now known. She is not the same person that we met in A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, there's no way she will ever be the same person again after the things that she went through. She's been through so much trauma, but also, I mean, she died. Like, she literally died and came back to life, and now she's a fairy. So she's literally not even human anymore. She is a person who not only has to deal with all these things that she was forced to do to save the man that she loved, and to save basically his entire race of people, she also has to deal with all of these this kind of new strength and these new kind of powers that she seems to have. And there's so much more to that as well that she still has to explore, and that we continue to find out throughout the rest of the book. It's not as simple as her just being a high fae anymore. There's so much more to it than that, and I really, really enjoyed finding out a lot about to do with that and with Feyre's new form, or new fairy form. That was a very, very exciting part of this book, and I felt like it gave it a really nice edge to it as well, that she wasn't just this normal high fae. There's so much more to her, and I just love that. As someone who in the first book was so weak as a human, I feel like for her to go from that to this really powerful being in the second book was just such a jump. But also in the, like, obviously in her heart she's still quite human. She's referred to quite a lot in this book as a fairy with a mortal heart, or immortal with a mortal heart, and we see that in a lot of the ways that she treats people a lot in this book, and she's still full of kindness. But we also see a lot of other fairies we're kind of used to seeing in this book. In fairy books in general, fairies generally are quite cruel, and they like to play tricks, and they're just not really nice beings, where in this book we do get examples of fairies who are genuinely good people and look after their own and are full of love and kindness, but aren't really given the opportunity to show it, or aren't showing it for particular reasons. It's explored a lot in the book as well. I don't want to go into detail because obviously I don't want to spoil anything. And her trauma was done in this book was really, really good. From the start we can see that she's dealing with a lot. She has PTSD, she has anxiety, she has fears, you know, she has fears of being underground, she's claustrophobic now, she doesn't like being in rooms, she gets physically sick. We see her deal with a lot of these kind of things that I guess are also closely linked to things like PTSD and trauma and anxiety and high stress situations. And I really like that in this book it wasn't like a quick fix is throughout the entire book, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, and I think it's actually good for people to know going into this book, if you haven't read it yet, that her PTSD from the horrible things that she went through at the hands of Amarantha? How do you say that name? The things that she went through in the caves to try and save Tamlin, like, are just very hard to deal with, and they would not be something that you can just click your fingers and be done with. I think in all of these books she's never going to be better. Like, this is going to be something that will stay with her for the rest of her immortal life, basically. I think we'll continue, I'm hoping we will continue to see her struggle with that, because while obviously there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can start to deal with your PTSD and it can start getting a little bit better. I think things like that, like, they won't completely go away. I think it's unrealistic to say that things like that would go away completely. And I really like that we see her struggle throughout the whole book, slowly start to get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I think it's just really healthy to have that in the book, and to say to people, listen, if you're as bad for whatever like you've gone through in your life, it just takes time, and just be patient with yourself, and a little bit of self-care, a little bit of self-reflection, and not pushing yourself too hard, and not letting people treat you like crap as well. That helps too. Lead me on to my other thing that I loved about this book, which was toxic relationships. There's relationships in this book that go very, very toxic, and I just think it's really, really important to show toxic relationships, specifically relationships that stemmed from love. And I think it's very easy. I mean, most toxic relationships out there don't start as toxic relationships, whether this be a romantic relationship or a friendship. There are various types of toxic relationships. Toxic relationships don't specifically mean romantic relationships. I'd love to make that clear now. So again, we do see examples of both friendship and romance toxic relationships in this book, and I just love the fact that it shows like you can change as a person, and sometimes changing as a person for the better doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely gel with the person you loved when you were the person you were before. And sometimes people change, and sometimes they just don't gel together anymore, and love can change and love can develop, and sometimes as you develop as a person, love doesn't keep up with you. And I just love the way that was explored in this book, and I loved the way there was just so many great examples of what love should be and what love shouldn't be, and it was just so glaringly obvious, and I just love the way Sarah J Maas just twists and turns with relationships in this book. And I think just the way she wrote things is just so clever, the way you can just really hate one person and love one person and love one person and hate one person, and it's just very well done in my opinion. It really kept me on the edge of my seat as a reader. Couldn't wait to see what happened next. She can write chemistry so well, and it's just so delicious to read on the page. When you have characters that gel well on the page, like, you are winning. As I said before, I just think the world building in this book did a really, really great job, to the point I just can't wait to get on to the next book and see the rest of the world that Sarah J Maas shows us. These are chunky books, there's a lot of information in them, and it can kind of be a little bit hard to keep up with everyone and all the courts and all the people in each court, and I kind of think it's good that she's kind of just introducing them all slowly. I think if she introduced them all at the same time, it would just be, there'd be too much names and too many things to remember. First book, obviously, The Court of Thorns and Roses, we did meet the Spring Court, who is led by Tamlin. In this one, we kind of delve further into the Night Court, and we see the Court of Dreams and Court of Nightmares, which I really, really enjoyed seeing. I loved seeing those kind of just extended out and seeing more of that type of court. We kind of heard things about it in the first book, and now we kind of got to see it properly through Feyre's eyes. I will say, for people who like Holly Black, the Court of Nightmares reminded me a lot of the Court of Termites in her book series, in her Fae book series, particularly the one that's led by Robin from Tithe. Court of Nightmares is very similar to the Court of Termites. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Really liked seeing the Summer Court in this one as well, and I think hopefully maybe in the next book we could get glimpses of other courts. The Autumn Court maybe, and that'll be really interesting. As I said, I like the fact that we just got like little bits. We got to see a little bit of each court, and we got to know a little bit more about the human world in this one as well, which was really important. The human world, it doesn't just exist as Feyre's old village. We find out that there's a lot more to the human world as well, which I loved. I feel like there's so much more to explore there too, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. One thing I would love in these books, I don't know if it wasn't in the first book, I'm not sure, maybe in the second book if there was one, or in the third book in physical format. I would love just like a list of the courts and the characters who are in each court, because sometimes it is hard to remember which character belongs to which court unless they specifically state it when they see that person. And sometimes if that person comes back, or like a lot of the characters we meet, they have like aunts or uncles or dads or whatever in courts, and or it could be high positions in different courts, and it can be kind of like hard to keep up with that sometimes. So I would love just like kind of a character list and say like, this is this person in this court, and this is this person in this court, and these are the people in this court. That would just be handy as a reader. Always quite handy just to have when you're dealing with a lot of characters with a lot of different kind of political alliances as well. So I think that's kind of everything I can say without kind of just going on and gushing about how much I love the book. I just love all the characters in it. I love the new characters that were brought in. I love that we do have characters who were introduced in this book that you would just like die for. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Again, I think this is just really powerful writing. And I would like to say again, I said it in my review wrap up, but I will say again that these books, they're really good writing, and the fantasy in it, for me, I think the writing is good, the fantasy in it is great, and the world building, as I said, is really good. The world that Sarah J Maas has created in terms of the courts and the people and the powers and everything like that, and the human world, I just think is really good and really in depth. And I feel like you can tell, it feels like there's been a lot of thought put behind it. And I think that these books are kind of cast aside sometimes as these smutty fairy books, and yes, there is sex in them, but there's not that much sex in them that, you know, it's not all smut. I think for some reason it has a reputation as one, because I definitely had a feeling that that's what it was, and I've been completely proved wrong. Yeah, I definitely feel like there's something needs to be done. I don't know whether it's like the covers. I wonder if they had like darker, twistier covers, if people would be more drawn to it. I don't know. I feel like the cartoony covers, while I love them, I'm not sure if they do it enough justice for the actual quality of writing and storytelling and world building that is in the novels. So I would be really interested to see if there was a cover rebrand, what the rebrand would be, just to make it maybe a little bit more mature and a little bit more I don't know, would it attract kind of fantasy lovers, people who like enjoy high fantasy more, whether it would attract more of those kind of readers, more serious fantasy readers, or, you know, snobby fantasy readers maybe, that they wouldn't just pass it off as, you know, like a smutty fairy book, when it is obviously a lot more than that. Though to be fair, all those people who do think that are missing out. I've been missing out for the last few years because I haven't reading these books, and the people who still won't read it because of that are missing out, so it's their loss. So I really love this book. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I would love if anyone who has read this book, if you want to discuss anything down below in the comments. If you are maybe going to put spoilers down in the comments, maybe just do a little bit of warning just in case people do go and glance at the comments without reading the book. That's everything I have to talk about, without just gushing about how much I love this book and how much I love Rhys and how I die for him. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.